Okay, so I've been doing a lot of shoots lately with kind of my personal gear, and I was gonna walk through basically my go-to lighting kit for like small commercial work and basically any type of like film project that you don't have like a full grip truck for, something that you can just buy and it will all fit in a car. So as a freelance cinematographer or filmmaker, you're going to need gear to help make your videos. Now, if you're given the budget, of course, you can rent all your gear from a rental house, you can get a grip truck and grips, and then you can even get your camera equipment from the rental house because that stuff costs a lot of money. But maybe there's a lot of stuff that you want to do on your own, or maybe that you want to try to make a little bit of money on the side by renting your gear to the production. And even if you're not trying to just make money with the gear, maybe you just want the gear yourself just to kind of make your own stuff and practice. And so that's basically what I'm going to talk about in this video. I'm going to talk about my small go-to lighting package that will fit in a car that I use for small commercials, film projects, and music videos. That being said, our lights are getting brighter, they're getting smaller, they're getting cheaper, our cameras are getting more sensitive. So honestly, a lot of this gear that I'm going to talk about today will be able to work on an array of projects. So it's stuff that you can invest in yourself and take it with you on any project. But this video is going to be dedicated to my go-to lighting package, not my camera package. We'll probably just save that for another video. So the first thing we're going to talk about is probably the cheapest thing that you can purchase for yourself, and that's going to be light stands. Now you can use light stands obviously to hold lights, but also you can use things like C-stands to hold modifiers to help modify your light. So the first stand I want to talk about is this heavy duty impact light stand. Now the reason I like these stands is because they are, like they said, heavy duty. Now you can definitely find smaller light stands that will break down even smaller, but I like these because they're gonna be able to hold a little bit of a heavier light, and I know that they're always gonna be stable. And that's because they have really wide legs on them. The wider the leg on your stand, the more stable it's gonna be, and the less opportunity for the light to fall over. And we definitely don't want that because we're gonna spend hundreds of dollars on our lights. We don't want them crashing into the ground. First off, that sucks for your light, and second off, it's not gonna be very professional on set. So honestly, these things, I think they come in like a pair for like 50 bucks, or you can get them cheaper on their own, but I tend to like to have as many of these stands around as possible. And the reason I like these stands is because they have this spud that's removable at the top. So basically there's holes on either side that you can slide things through to modify, or you can stick that spud in the top and put a light on there. Or if you want to take that spud out, you can also put lights on there that maybe have the reverse spud, more of like a male spud on them. And then also what I really like about this spud is it has a 1/4 on it and a 3/8 on the other side, so you can mount certain things on there like my nan lights, which we are going to talk about later in the video. So you're basically going to have a stand for every light that you have, but it's also nice to have 1 or 2 stands extra for your modifiers. But the next thing you're going to want to have in your kit is a C-stand, or what they used to call a Sentry stand. Now these stands are made out of metal and they're much stronger, and they're designed to hold a lot more weight. What's also great about C-stands is how the legs work. They lock in place, and you have different sizes of the legs, which keeps it really stable. And you always want to have that big leg forward to wherever that weight is. So if the weight's kind of coming off this direction, that's where all the leverage is. You want to have your big leg under that, and that's going to give you the most stable stand. So what I like about C-stands is they come with a Hollywood arm on them, or a grip arm as some people call it, and a grip head or a gobo head. And those heads are going to be really helpful to help hold modifiers in different ways. You can actually use these stands for basically anything on set. Anything that you need to hold, this is your go-to stand for that. But then you can also use this as a light stand if you're using a much heavier light. You just simply take off that grip head, and then you can have a male spud on there so you can put heavier lights on the top. Which brings us to the next section of this kit, which is the lights. Now recently, Aperture is starting to make some more affordable lighting. Now I'm sure you've heard online already, a lot of people talk about Aperture and their 120D and their 300D, which are really high quality lights. They're really not that expensive for a beginner, especially coming from other lighting in the world. Like if you're looking at like an Aries sky panel, I think it's gonna be like $4,000, or like a Joker or an HMI. These are really expensive lights, whereas Aperture's come in here now with a much more affordable option that I really enjoy. But even more recently, Aperture has come out with the Amaran 200X and 200D. Now these lights are like a variation of the 120D and 300D. They're kind of in between when it comes to the power output, and they're made out of a little bit more, I would say, cheaper materials, some sort of plastic and not the metal material. They're built a little bit differently, but they're very reasonable. Actually, these 200Ds are actually only cost like $300, and that's same for the 200X. Now, the only difference between the 200D and the 200X is the 200X is actually a bi-color light. So it can go up and down on the whole Kelvin scale versus just being locked into that daylight balanced light, which is what the 200D is. But now the 200D, because all of those LEDs are focused on one color temperature, it's going to give you a much bigger output than the X. But that's okay. Basically, what I have done here is I actually have a 200X in my kit, and then I have a 200D in my kit, so I have kind of the best of both worlds that way. And I recommend that. You don't want to just have one light in your kit. You're definitely going to want somewhere between 1 and 4 lights at least in your kit. But we'll talk about that a little bit later when we start talking about all the variations of lights that I have. So another great thing about these Amaran lights is that they work with the Sidus app, so you can actually just pull out your phone and you can actually just change the lights from your phone, and you can connect it to all the Aperture lights that have the Sidus app, and that's pretty neat. You can basically control the lights in the room this way. And that's kind of why I'm sticking with Aperture in this kit, is because I can control them all with one app. So these lights are very small and lightweight, which is also a big bonus because they basically can just fit into a milk crate. And if you've used the Aperture 120D and 300D, they have really big control units on them, and they have like multiple power plugs on them, and it's kind of a mess. But these new ones actually have a much smaller setup when it comes to powering them, and it gives them a much smaller footprint when putting it like in your vehicle or something. So these are pretty reasonable at around $300. But if you need more output and you kind of want to invest even more in your lighting, that's when you would go to the Aperture Nova, which I have over here behind me. It's going to give you a lot more output, and it's an RGB light, and it's also a panel light, so it's going to give you a little bit of a softer source versus the kind of can source that's on here, which is going to be much more sourcey, much more spotty than what you will get out of this light. It's going to be kind of softer right out of the gate. But this light is much more expensive. This comes in at $1,700, $1,800 with a case, which I highly recommend getting a case for it. I don't have one in yet for it, but hopefully that'll be coming soon. And this light can basically do anything. It can match color temperatures from a bunch of different lights. You can basically just pick a source on there. You're like, I want this to look like an HMI. Boom, you can do it. I want this to look like Christmas lights. Boom, you can do it really fast. It has a really high power output on it, and I really like this light. Actually, I used this on set recently with an international brand, a commercial campaign, basically a social campaign for them, and we were shooting outside, and I was able to just turn on the Nova and put up some negative fill on my subject, and it actually lit and compete with the sun outside. Now, of course, I was under like an overhang, but I would do that anyways just to have a nice even lighting and control my lighting. But I was just kind of amazed that I just turned on the Nova and I was basically lit. Pretty powerful light, and I really like this light. It's comparable to somewhere around like a Aries SkyPanel S30, their kind of smallest unit. That's basically what this Nova is competing with, and it's about half the price. So what's great about the Nova is it's going to be able to compete with the sun basically inside. You're not going to have very many issues with that. Whereas these Amaran 200s are maybe not going to quite get there, but there's plenty of output here to do most things that I do when it comes to interiors. If you want to get a little bit bigger than this, you're going to move up to the 300D or the 600D, which is extremely bright, even brighter than the Nova back here. But we're talking about a more smaller footprint lighting kit right now, and something that doesn't cost quite that much money. Maybe we'll talk about those lights in another video. So the next piece of lighting gear that I like to have is these Nanlite Pavo tubes. Now, I've talked about these a little bit on the channel before. Basically, they're 4-foot RGBW LED tubes that you can cycle through any color on them. You can basically do whatever you want. They have a pretty decent power output, obviously not quite as much as everything else that we're talking about in the kit, but you could basically use these for anything. What I like about them is that they're 4 foot wide, so they already kind of create a soft source, nice wrap around the face. I'm actually using this one back here right now. But what I love about them is that they're wide like that. They have a flat edge on them, so you can basically set them anywhere in a room and immediately have a light source in the room for the background, or you can even use it as a key light. These are just so great because they're battery powered. They last like 2 to 3 hours, and you can just throw them in the back of the car, put them anywhere, and they're a great piece of lighting gear to have in the kit. Now, I have the 4-foot versions and the 2-foot versions, which are really handy. The 2-foot versions you can put in even smaller spaces, but they basically do the same thing as the 4-foot versions. All right, so before we move on to talk about our lighting modifiers, I want to talk about today's sponsor, which is Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to present your work online. I've been using Squarespace for the better part of a decade now, and it's helped me get so much work in the film and video industry, and without Squarespace, I don't really know where I would be because they were the first place I could find that was easy to actually build my website and put my stuff online. I started with one of their pre-existing templates and kind of modified it myself to make it my own, threw in my pizzazz there, and then was able just to use Vimeo or YouTube to embed videos right into the page and control the captions there. So if someone finds me because they're searching for a cinematographer in my area, they can go to my page, they can see my work, and they can immediately fill out a contact form, and I'll know that there's someone coming from my website inquiring about a job, and it's not just someone kind of just randomly emailing my personal email. So if you're anything like me and need to be found online, well, you can just build a website with Squarespace. You can click the link in the description to get 10% off, and I want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. So once you have your stands and your lights, you're needing a way to modify the light. You maybe want to block some light, or you want to diffuse some light, or maybe bounce some light. And the cheapest and easiest way to do this is use a 5-in-1 reflector. Now, these reflectors were designed for photo use originally, but I use them all the time to make videos. Now, what's great about a 5-in-1 reflector is it basically has a bunch of modifiers built into one unit that folds down super small. It's made out of fabric, and they cost like 20 bucks. So they have an ultra bounce side on so you can bounce light. They've got a gold and a silver side to reflect light from like the sun. And then they also have a black side to block light. And then inside of that, they have a piece of diffusion so you can soften light and make it more pleasant on your subject. And so how I like to mount these is you can use a light stand and a clip like this. You can get these at Home Depot for like nothing. This is like a really cheap grip clip, but then they also have these kind of bigger heavy duty ones. I think this is called like a number 2 grip clip. You'll see these on basically every film set ever. You can use these to clip these things to your light stand, or what I like to do is clip it on my C-stand. So I set up my C-stand with the arm out, and then I open up the 5-in-1 reflector and I clip it to that, and that's the best way of basically holding such a big, wide 5-in-1 reflector. And I do recommend the big 5-in-1 reflectors. They have like some smaller ones that are circular, but I prefer to use the bigger 5-in-1 reflectors because you can basically just do more with those. The bigger the source, the softer the source, so if you pull out that diffusion, it's going to be softer, or if you're even trying to just block some light in the room, you're going to have that bigger sheet of black to block something in the room. But if you want to get your light source even softer and you want to make it even bigger, that's where I end up using a shower curtain. Yes, a shower curtain. It may not look super professional on set, but it can fold down into this little square and they cost like $12. So it's definitely a good place to start. Of course, there are professional versions of what a shower curtain is. There's a million different kinds, from frost all the way down to a silk to a grid. I actually use grids a lot. I've talked about them on the channel before, and that's like a $100 piece of fabric that is designed to go on 6x or 8x frames to help diffuse your light. But if you're just getting started, a shower curtain is the best way to start. Just buy a frosted shower curtain for like 12 bucks, and then you can use the same thing. You can simply just use the clips to clip it on a light stand. And what I actually use is something that my friend made. He just bought some piping, some skinny piping from Home Depot, put a little piece of metal in the middle of it. And once it's put together like that, it actually makes a 6-foot rod. And that 6-foot rod will be able to hold the full shower curtain and give you a really nice soft source. Now that's something you're gonna have to do on your own, or there are definitely frames online that you can buy, like a Scrim Gym frame, but those are gonna cost a little bit more money and are going to take up a little bit more space in your car. So another fun thing about the Amaran lights is that they actually have a built-in umbrella holder. Now I've talked about my 7-foot umbrella in the past. Something I really like about umbrellas is that they fold down really small and you can pop them out and then they become a 7-foot light source, which is a really nice place to start when keying a subject. And in the past, I actually had to have a separate stand with an umbrella holder on there. It wasn't always working right. You know, it had this like kind of angled adapter on there, and eventually the angled adapter broke because there's a lot of leverage coming off of these umbrellas when they're this tall. But with this, it really wasn't that hard. I was able to just slide that umbrella right into the mount on the Amaran, and I was set up. I had a modifier. You could also use one of Aperture's softboxes to do something like this, but I really like this because the source is just really big. And of course, as always, I will have links to all this gear that I talk about in the description box below. So likewise with the shower curtain, you can get something like a black sheet or black fabric, or maybe some sort of like moving pad, like a Fernie pad, and you could also clip that up to help block light. Once again, it's just trying to make something bigger and that can fold up and fit in your car. But my favorite piece of gear to have in the kit for negative fill and blocking light is actually my 3x3 Floppy. So what's great about this Floppy is that it's a 3x3 frame. Now commonly these Floppies and a lot of modifiers are 4x4 frames, and 4x4 frames don't fit very well in a vehicle. But recently people kind of caught on to this and they finally started making 3x3 frames that will fit right into your car. So once I kind of heard about this, another friend had bought one. I used it in person. I was like, yes, I have to get this. So the only one I could find in a short notice was from Modern Studio. Now B&H does sell one, I believe, but they've been out of stock for a while. You can buy it direct from Modern Studio, or maybe even on Film Tools you could get a 3x3 Floppy. But what's great about a 3x3 Floppy is it obviously is designed for film set, so it fits right into your grip head on your C-stand. So what I really like about Floppies is that they're 3x3 frames to block light, but then you can simply grab the top of the fabric and it'll unvelcro and then fold down, and now you have a 3x6 frame. So it can basically cover an entire person's body from top to bottom, and it can even go up and kind of go over their head and block some sun off their head if they need to. Or you can use these to put over you while you're filming to help block the light on your monitor. That's what's called a courtesy on a film set. Anyways, this is my favorite piece of kit, because if you have one of these on a stand, you need to add some shape to a subject real fast. Just bring in that Floppy, set it next to them, block some light, get some downside on their face, and you're good to go. So I really, really, really like this piece of gear. And I'm just really happy that those 3 foots exist now, because it just goes right into my car with no problems. So I actually used this exact kit on a few shoots recently. I was able to load it all in my car, take it wherever I needed it, unload it, and light a scene very fast using just this kit. Now, obviously you can upgrade this kit, you can get bigger lights, bigger stands, all of that stuff, and eventually you'll probably outgrow your car. But if you're just getting started, this is the kit I recommend. Now, if you have any questions about this gear in this video, let me know in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to respond to you and let you kind of know my thoughts kind of overall of each piece of gear. I haven't made a video over each piece of gear here, obviously. All right, well, that's all I have for this video. As always, I'm Spencer Sakurai. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. That goes a long way on the channel. And if you love the video, consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, guys, see ya.